I was once told by an aspiring writer that they'd hate to write Superman. I found that bizarre, but in the same year was told the same thing by another aspiring writer. Since that event, I've actually found that this is a kind of common thing. People think that Superman would be a boring or difficult character to write for because of who he is. He's a genuinely great person who follows the rules and doesn't kill, who has a huge amount of moral fortitude. Plus, he has some pretty insane superpowers, making it hard to send anything challenging his way. Or at least that's what people seem to think. Today, I'm going to talk all about why I would love to write a Superman story, and why I think he can be just as interesting a character to write as any other. I'm Christian Pearson, and you're watching Superhero Studies. To the credit of people who say they'd hate to write Superman, Robert McKee has a quote about characters like Superman in his book, Story. It goes, "When characterization and true character match, when inner life and outer appearance, like a block of cement, are of one substance, the rule becomes a list of repetitious, predictable behaviors." Basically, if you're just a good person inside and out,
you're boring.
But you know why I think a superpowered Boy Scout clad in red and blue can have an incredible story told about them? How about Captain America Winter Soldier? Cap starts the movie with strong morals and ends the movie with the exact same morals, and yet he's still an engaging character in the film. You can't easily give a character with unwavering morals an arc, but you don't have to. Even Winter Soldier isn't a story of disenchantment where Cap trusts S.H.I.E.L.D., then comes to learn he shouldn't. He doesn't trust them right off the bat. And he's just doing what's right, not what a powerful government organization is telling him is right. He has to stick to his morals against popular opinion. But let's use a Superman example. What's so funny about Truth, Justice, and the American Way? Or for people who watch the animated film, Superman vs. the Elite. It's a story that asks an age-old philosophical comic question: should superheroes kill? In brief summary, a team of superheroes called the Elites start killing supervillains, and society starts taking their side because they know it means those supervillains are gone for good. See, it's easy for Superman to be himself most of the time because society tends to be on his side. But this story flips things around and makes society say, no, we feel safer with villains being killed. You see, a character changing or growing isn't the only way to make their tale engaging. As David Corbett says in one of my favorite books ever, The Art of Character, desire is the crucible that forges character because it intrinsically creates conflict. You just have to give Superman an intense desire. Superman's desire in this tale is he wants to bring society back to seeing that killing supervillains isn't the way to deal with them. But how can he do that? The Elites do have a point. Villains frequently escape lockup after Superman puts them away. At this point, Superman not only has to convince society that his morals are right, but he has to convince us, the audience, and that's where a great writer's skills will shine. So, in short, one way to make a morally fixed character interesting is to put everyone against their stance. Make them have to be themselves against huge odds. It's only easy to be yourself when people like who you are. Another way to tell an engaging Superman story is to write him a great villain. The one credit I'll give Man of Steel, besides the incredible visuals, is that Zod is a pretty good villain. One of the few moments in the movie where I really felt something was when Zod says this:
I exist.
He may not be a good guy, but that is very solid motivation for him to kick Superman's spandex-clad ass. Not only that, but he's physically strong enough to take on Superman without kryptonite. See, unless you're reading a comic from the 70s, Superman can't just do anything. He's really fast, he's really strong, he can see through stuff, he can shoot lasers, and sometimes he can blow freeze breath, depending on who the writer is. You know how many characters in DC Comics can do those things? Plus, Superman isn't just vulnerable to kryptonite, he's vulnerable to magic, and he's often depicted as not being able to breathe in space. It's not hard to write a villain that could actually kill Superman. There's a great line in Max Landis' hilarious video on The Death and Return of Superman where he tells of a time his dad asked him, "How do you kill a vampire?" And after listing off the obvious usual ways, Landis' dad said, "No, you kill a vampire however the you want because vampires don't exist." You're the writer. You want to write a supervillain who's radioactive skin weakens Superman, then you can do that. And if you do a good job, the audience is gonna buy it. Not that I'm saying that's how you make a Superman story interesting. Superman doesn't strike me as someone who fears death, so why would we fear it for him? He fears not being able to save other people. So you don't need a villain that can threaten him, you need someone who can threaten his city. Or hell, even just one person. Not Lois, though. That whole hero's significant other being kidnapped by villain thing is a really played out trope. We don't need it anymore. Plus, Superman cares about everyone, not just Lois. A really interesting story, which has probably happened in Superman's long history, is a story where someone he can't stand is put in peril. Make Superman save someone who, though not a supervillain, is so incredibly vile that people would actually want Superman to not save this person. Picture this. A human piece of garbage is making their way up the political ladder and is coming close to presidency. Superman knows that if this man is put in office, there will be outrage, hate will spread, and people will die. He can't say 100% for sure, but he sees the trouble brewing. The Justice League discusses the dreadful thought that this politician could actually win. It's a devastating thought to all of them, but they can't do anything about it. Or at least, that's what most of them think. As they chat, Wonder Woman is gearing up. She's going to kill the politician. She's a warrior. She rarely kills only because it's not the League's way. But Diana won't stand by while a hate-mongering bigot tears apart one of the most influential countries on the world that she helps protect. Now, Superman isn't just put in a situation where he feels he must protect a man he hates, but he must protect the politician from one of his closest, oldest friends. And now he has to convince us that what he's doing is right. Plus, in this situation, a lot of society would likely be against Superman as they were in the Truth, Justice, and American Way story. Although they might be less vocal about killing someone who technically isn't a supervillain. It depends on how you write it. And that's just one quick pitch. I will admit, Superman is a harder character to make compelling than others because he's not self-deluded by any stretch. He knows who he is, he knows what he stands for, and his morals are unwavering. But just because you can't necessarily give him an arc where he changes his moral code, that doesn't mean there are no interesting situations to put him in. You can make him a symbol of hope against great odds. And if you're a great writer, you should jump at the challenge to write a character who isn't necessarily easy to write for. In fact, I recommend writing a character like Superman in your own work as a challenge for yourself. It'll mean you can't fall into tropey character arcs that we've seen a million times before. You'll have to try to do something different, and you'll probably grow as a writer from trying. So hey, do you have a great Superman story pitch? Let me know about it in the comments below. Also, click the subscribe button and the bell to get notified when I release more superhero studies in the future. One comes out every Wednesday.